The Dragon Ball series is a franchise that's easy to get nostalgic over. Many of the kids who grew up watching Goku and the gang train some more remember how epic the Saiyans battles were, and likely remember how long the battles would drag out for. Little did most of us know, creator Akira Toriyama was writing and drawing the Dragon Ball manga on a weekly basis, never wanting to plan ahead as to where the story would actually go. So by the time the show was airing, he was pressured to keep the stories coming on Weekly Shonen Jump, which is where the manga was being published. This is why the series often took some, well, interesting turns from time to time, and why the show itself during certain periods would lull or explore odd territory. The more you reflect on it, regardless of how much you may love Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, there were a lot of odd mistakes made over the years that were a product of rushing. So today we're taking a look at some of these instances with our list of the top 10 Dragon Ball mistakes that you can't unsee. And at number 10, Yajirobe and his Dragon Ball. While the anime is notorious for harboring a ton of mistakes, inconsistencies, and animation errors, the manga is just as guilty at times. And to be honest, I feel like Toriyama has a little bit more leeway when it comes to making mistakes there, since he was under so much pressure to pump out those new stories. But this number also made its way into the anime. Remember Yajirobe? He was a Ronin who met Goku when Goku was just a boy in Dragon Ball, and managed to continue to be a reoccurring character throughout all of the Dragon Ball series. Now if that doesn't ring a bell for you, he's the chubby dude who loves food and has a katana that he carries around, and often a pretty brash attitude, but is surprisingly also a very adequate warrior. He carries a Dragon Ball around his neck, attached by a brown string. But here's the thing. Dragon Balls are supposed to be indestructible mystic objects, so riddle me this. How the hell did Yajirobe manage to drill a hole into it and turn it into a fashion accessory? While you can argue that in the anime the Dragon Ball could be attached on a clasp of some sort, in the manga there's clearly a hole through the top of the Dragon Ball that attaches it to the string. This is a mistake that some have noted that Toriyama has tried to revise later on down the line, but still, it's next to impossible to unsee that now. Moving on to number 9, Krillin's height. This one is pretty hilarious. So inconsistencies and continuity errors are pretty common in the Dragon Ball Z anime, right from the start of the show all the way to its end. This one, which occurred during the Saiyan saga, can be seen in multiple episodes, and even in the manga too. In various scenes, pay attention to Krillin and his height. It constantly varies. At times, he's Goku's shoulder level, whereas in other scenes, like when he's in front of Raditz, he looks like he's the height of a child. This could be chalked up to the fact that in certain scenes, like the Raditz one for example, Raditz is meant to seem more physically imposing and threatening compared to sweet little bald Krillin, who, despite the difference between them, has proven over the years that he can hold his own when side by side with the universe's most powerful Saiyans. It kinda makes sense that his stature would vary early on though in terms of using it as a character tool, but considering that this is a problem that fans noticed in the manga too, well, let's maybe chop this one up to Toriyama's rapid pace when pumping out the Dragon Ball stories. Up next at 8, Vegeta and Planet Vegeta. Planet Vegeta, the home planet of the Saiyans, was destroyed by Frieza when the villain became concerned that the Saiyans were becoming too powerful. But for a long time, as far as the few surviving Saiyans were concerned, the planet was destroyed by an asteroid 3 years before Frieza's arrival. This is the story that Frieza spread to keep the remaining Saiyans from turning against him. It's also the story that Vegeta had been told as well. So when Vegeta finds out that Frieza had been the one to destroy the planet, it's a pretty big deal. And the reveal, while not flooring him, had thrown him off his guard. Now in the Japanese anime and the original manga, when Vegeta finds out the truth, he's clearly surprised. But in the dubbed English version of the anime, producers decided to remove his original reaction, instead replacing it with Vegeta stating that he knew all along, which doesn't really match up all that well with what's on screen. And at number 7, Capsule Core. In 2009, a revised version of Dragon Ball Z was released, called Dragon Ball Kai. In it, many of the previous animation errors that appeared in the show were fixed, and it boasted a remastered high-definition picture, sound and special effects, and even some re-recorded voice work by the majority of the show's original cast. Since many of the series' sketches and animation cells had been disregarded back in 1996 after the final episode of Dragon Ball Z, creators had to produce new frames by digitally tracing over the existing footage, and fill them in with softer colors which reduced visible damage on the original animation. All in all, really smart thing to do. But some mistakes weren't erased in Dragon Ball Kai, including this number. During the Namek saga, there's a scene with a mistake in it in episode 11, which is episode 46 in the overall Dragon Ball Z series, called Defying Orders. In it, there's a Capsule Corporation spaceship that was built for Goku by Dr. Brief. When it takes liftoff, you can see the Capsule Core logo on the ship, which reads CPSULECORP, rather than its proper spelling of capsule. Now there's a slew of little details like this all throughout the show too. And once you see them, they're really hard to miss, cause that's the title of our video. And at number 6, Cell's regeneration. In the Cell saga, we see the villain Cell regenerate a total of 3 times. Now Cell, who was created by Dr. Gero, came from a future timeline, and was crafted to possess all of the abilities of the greatest fighters that Earth had ever seen, with the goal of Cell being the perfect warrior. This means that he has Piccolo's genetic material in him, therefore he can regenerate his body parts, just as long as his brain is intact. But here's where things get a little bit fumbly. In all the times that Cell regenerates, it's only the attack by Vegeta that doesn't obliterate his head, which is where his brain is. Yet, in the first 2 regenerations we witness, Cell's head is nowhere to be seen. When Goku attacks him and completely obliterates his upper body, Cell still regenerates, which doesn't make sense if we're following the previous logic. Even when it looks like Cell is completely destroyed after he blows himself up, he manages to come back thanks to a single cell still remaining. How the hell does that work, you may wonder? Well, it works thanks to the suspension of disbelief, friends, and also because Cell was too good of a villain to have a short tenure on the show. Obs. Moving on to number 5, Krillin's outfit change. And here we have yet another number concerning Krillin. And also not the last. So, one of the most common mistakes you'll notice in Dragon Ball Z is that often, colors will be inconsistent when it comes to outfits or backgrounds. In one shot, something might be a little lighter shade, and in the next, it could be a darker shade. Sometimes, something can be 2 completely different colors. Now, considering how many episodes there are within the franchise, you can see how sometimes things would slip through the cracks. Anywho, one of these instances happened during the Frieza saga during the big battle with Frieza. Prior to it, Krillin and Gohan get some Saiyan armor from Vegeta before the fight, who explains that the armor can expand to any size. A little later on, Krillin and Gohan are talking before Krillin flies away. When they're speaking, he's wearing his Saiyan armor, but when he flies away, he's wearing his orange gi. So much for being prepared for the battle with the right threads. But also, can that be chalked up to a color mistake or just laziness, miscommunication? I don't know. You tell me. And at number 5, Trunks' warning. At the beginning of the Android saga, future Trunks arrives and warns Goku about androids 19 and 20. They're androids from the future who, along with Dr. Gero's other creations, threaten to wipe out all of humanity if not defeated. Now the future is already in peril, and Goku and the gang will need to kill the androids in their time in order to fix everything. So what's the problem with this one? Well, he warns Goku about 1920 rather than androids 17 and 18. This is a bit of a goof up because after this episode was complete, Toriyama's editor told him that 19 and 20 just weren't intimidating enough to be the main villains in the arc, which then led to the creation of androids 17 and 18. Trunks was then written back in and didn't recognize the androids upon seeing them in an attempt to get rid of 19 and 20 faster and clean things up. Up next at 3, Gohan's Dream. Before Cell reaches his perfect form, he's got 2 other stages that we witness in the show, imperfect and semi-perfect. The animation studio behind producing Dragon Ball Z added a scene during the Cell saga that took place in the hyperbolic time chamber while Gohan was training. Now overall, the studio beefed up the time chamber scenes to further elaborate on the intensity of his training that was initially depicted in the manga. This included a scene in which Gohan has a nightmare about Cell. So what's wrong with it? Well, his dream features perfect Cell, who at that point, Gohan hadn't seen yet. At this point in the story, Cell had achieved his perfect form, but the last time Gohan saw him was in his lesser form. So how would Gohan know that that's what he would look like? Sure, you can chalk this up to Gohan having some sort of mystic experience while in the chamber and seeing him that way, but still, doesn't really quite add up in the long run. And at number 2, Beerus and the Dinosaurs. Beerus is the god of destruction, who appeared in the movie Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods, and in the Dragon Ball Super show, in the first saga, aptly named God of Destruction Beerus Saga. Anywho, at one point the god claims that he is the one responsible for wiping out the dinosaurs, causing them to go extinct. But that doesn't really add up. Considering in both the Dragon Ball anime and in the Dragon Ball Z anime, we see dinosaurs. They're quite prominent in Dragon Ball, and Goku even fights some of them. And then in Dragon Ball Z, there's a scene where a T-Rex chases after some of the show's characters. Later, Gohan during the Saiyan saga cuts off a dinosaur's tail for food while training. Now after that moment, the dinosaurs pretty much disappear. But that still doesn't add up because Beerus has been sleeping for years and years and years, and was definitely in slumber during Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's earlier sagas. Perhaps you could justify this inconsistency by arguing that maybe Beerus was responsible for taking out the dinosaurs in another universe. He's the god of destruction of Universe 7, which is where all the canon Dragon Ball stories take place, whereas his twin brother, who is also a god of destruction, is the god of destruction in Universe 6. There's 12. So, I don't know, maybe he went to another universe and killed a bunch of dinosaurs and then came back to Universe 7. And finally, in our number 1 spot, Frieza's tail. The big battle between Goku and Frieza is perhaps one of the most epic and memorable events in the entire franchise. It's the first time Goku goes Super Saiyan, and it's also a battle that milks the crap out of the conflict, lasting the course of several episodes, despite the main characters being capable of moving in super speed. So theoretically it should be like that, but it's not. There's actually a theory behind that suggests that the viewers are watching the battle in slow motion. Right. Anywho, there's one detail in the battle that is hard to unsee once you take notice. Krillin contributes to the effort against Frieza by cutting off part of Frieza's tail. Frieza then fights Goku while missing part of his tail. But in some shots you can see that his missing tail didn't remain all that consistent, and the full tail returns at times. Is it regrowing and falling back off? No, it's just a major continuity error. Alright, there we have it friends. What other mistakes, inconsistencies, or animation errors have you noticed in the Dragon Ball series? Give us a shout in those comments below and let us know. There's a ton of other mistakes that we didn't touch on in this video, so if you guys want to see a part 2, give us a shout about that as well. If you dug this video, show us some love and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to Top 10 Nerd for more Dragon Ball videos. And much more, from lists to verses to fan theories, you name it. In the meantime though, thanks for watching everybody. I'll catch you all in the next video.